And welcome into this edition of the Citrus Preps podcast. Along with Mike Deem, I'm Brett Knutson. Welcome you to our podcast and say an early happy Thanksgiving as we come to you on Wednesday. I hope everyone gets to where they're going safe and sound and enjoy the time with the family. As we talked about a little bit last week, this is a bit of a transition time this time of year because of the change in seasons. But we still have some interesting playoff football games in high school to talk to and talk about.
They're close by. They're like teams that we know about.
So we'll talk about it. The Dunnellon Tigers go on the road to Santa Fe last week and pick up a big victory. We talked about the fact that Dunnellon, don't be fooled by the record. They played a brutal schedule loaded with playoff teams. They were peaking at the right time. They've had a little hurdle of getting past the second round of the state playoffs the last few years. Well, they cleared that hurdle easily, and now they are headed to the Villages, an undefeated Villages team. A good friend of ours, Justin Taylor, one of the assistant coaches up there. He's excited about that game and having a huge crowd up there at the Villages on Friday night. It will be interesting. The Villages has got some athletes. They've got some players. They play well as a team.
That's done on them really, though, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. Obviously, we're a little more familiar with Dunnellon and what they're capable of. Villages is a team that, we haven't seen a lot of this year. But when you're sitting there with a perfect record,
you can't say much.
You're the top seed in the playoffs, so they've obviously earned it. So, as usual, I think when you play Dunnellon, it comes down to, do you have enough athletes to slow down their athletes?
Right.
Obviously, Goolsby is one of the top athletes in the area, headed to Florida State. Jaquavian Frazier's is another D1 athlete as well. And they seem to be hitting their stride at just the right point of the season. Will it be good enough to pick up a region title and get it to the state Final Four? We'll have to see.
Yeah, they're very balanced. I mean, they didn't get a lot of passing attack off of that Santa Fe game, but they made it up with the Fraziers and running the ball, and did really well on the ground, and actually won the game that way. And defensively, they did really well on it. So and that's just something that you never hear of. You don't hear too much of from Dunnellon, but their defense is pretty stout.
Yeah, they came up big. They came up absolutely big time in that game, and that will be the interesting matchup, I think, is what the Villages offense will be able to do against the Dunnellon defense.
Right.
So exciting game, close to home. If you're looking for a great atmosphere on Friday night, it will be a wonderful atmosphere.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump over there.
Right over to the Villages, and Lord knows you can enjoy plenty of good food before or after the game over there. You've got
very true on that. Pre-game is good there.
Yeah, another big win as we talk obviously about Crystal River, Citrus, and Lecanto. Their district mate, Nature Coast, picks up a big win last Friday. So now they are into the regional final round, and they will take on North Marion, who went down to Zephyr Hills.
Yeah.
And Zephyr Hills turned the ball over a lot. I believe it was 6, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sure if you're Zephyr Hills, you're saying, well, if we wouldn't have, but you did. And, plenty of skill for North Marion. This is a fascinating matchup as well, because North Marion is back to being, I think, what we all thought they should be. Nature Coast is another one of those teams that has sort of had a little playoff hiccup in the second round. They get past that now.
And they got a pass right in flying colors with the last second field goal, and then finally holding with 8 seconds to go and just knocking them down. So that's a big hurdle. I actually didn't think Nature Coast would go this far, to be honest with you, after we saw what we saw in Crystal River. But again, Crystal River and Dunnellon, they beat Dunnellon. Crystal River did, and so did Nature Coast. They went down to the wire. So I thought both teams, but now they're, like you said, Dunnellon peaking at the right time. I think Nature Coast is doing the same.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, as good as Nature Coast is, I don't think that they saw a little bit, I think, of it when, they've played, a few teams in this area, but the athletes that North Marion is going to roll out will be interesting. But Nature Coast plays that ball control style of offense. I mean,
Michael Weston, over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, we've seen Nature Coast win a lot of close games this year. Mm-hmm. They've in years past have blown a lot of people out, but they've won a lot of close games, and they did it last week with a last-second field goal. So I think that, for them, take it into the fourth quarter and see what happens. and you would assume Weston will be able to break one. They've got some playmakers too.
They do.
Coast has some playmakers, so we'll see if they'll be able to move on, and that would be certainly interesting. So best of luck to Nature Coast and Dunellen, and North Marion as well too. They're not that far from here.
Villages are, like I said, so all those teams are very familiar. We're more familiar with Dunellen and Nature Coast as we watch them play, but the Villages are right outside the Inverness.
This Marion County, Citrus County, Hernando County area has been, if you take Vanguard out of the equation, has had a hard time.
Yeah.
Statewide in football, making a run deep into the playoffs. Well, either Dunellen or the Villages is going to move on to the Final Four, the state semifinals in Class 4, and then in Class 5 you'll have Nature Coast or North Marion move on to the state Final Four.
Right.
That's where it'll get dicey, but still, that's good for this area because I think it shows the coaches and the players that you can put together a roster that can compete with the top teams in the region.
Most definitely.
And that's the first step, is getting out of the region and getting into the state Final Four. And if you're Crystal River, or even if you're Citrus or Lecanto, you're saying, man, we've played Nature Coast tight, and they're about to make it all the way to the state Final Four. I think it just lets you know that it's not an impossible dream to think you can do it. So best of luck as these schools move on. And as we said, it's going to be fun for anybody. Either the Villages, relatively new school, a chance to make it to the Final Four. Dunellen, even though they've got state championships,
there's a little bit few far between.
This would be a big deal for them,
big time,
as well as North Marion and Nature Coast. So best of luck to them. We'll talk about them next week, and we know two of them will still be alive. That's good. Basketball is underway, which is exciting. Also, soccer is have to take on Weeki Wachee early in the season, which is never fun. So it's not going to be easy to match up with some of these teams. As we've talked about on the girls' side in this area, obviously the Weeki Wachee girls are the team to beat. They had a big win the other night. I think it was 60-20 over Hudson. They will be the team to beat in the district. And then from there on, you're going to have to look and see what and who can make that jump up. Will it be Crystal River, who's been there? They've lost some key players off the roster, and I know Coach Bryant will have a story up here in a couple of days, completely changing the offense on what they've done. We'll see how quickly the girls pick it up. Lecanto lost a couple of key players from last year, and they're 1-1 on the season. Citrus is sort of rebuilding on the girls' side, but someone's got to step up and challenge Weeki Wachee.
Yeah, Stephen Blake taking the Citrus girls over and just trying to make sure that they're putting some continuity in there. And like you said, Ron Allen, the dean right now of that with Charles Bryan, and then we can't forget Gary Dreyer down at Seven Rivers. Trying to get a girls team to come out. Had some pretty good teams coming in the last couple of years,
and it'll be battling in the district play to try and get into the 2A state playoffs for Coach Dreyer and his Warriors. On the boys' side, again, Nature Coast will be the team to beat in that district. Crystal River's got some talented players. It starts and ends, I think, with DeAndre Parker. From the coaches I've talked to outside of Crystal River, just looking at teams, they all say he's the most complete player in the district, and he's a game changer, like he is on the football field. The question is, how healthy will he be? Remember, he missed the playoff game for Crystal River in football because of an injury. How quickly can he heal and get himself ready for basketball season? And Coach Jim Irvin and the Crystal River boys. Frank Filardi running the show at Lecanto has got not a whole lot of returning minutes back, so he's sort of rebuilding again in his second year back with the Lecanto program. Runs that offense that's just get up and down the court, shoot the basketball.
Yeah, he loves that run and gun. He just wants to go. And I love Frank Filardi. He actually coached some of my sons, and I'm telling you right now, in middle school and so forth. And I tell you what, he's a great coach, and he's going to have them back on track. You'll see. I can guarantee that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And they're realistic with their expectations. I was out there at their practice the other day, and we'll have a story on them coming up too. They kind of understand where they're at and where they're going. They realize, the 500 mark would be a step up.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of left in a bit of a mess, that program, and Coach Filardi trying to build it back up and he's got bodies. He's just got to get them used to playing. He's got a couple of kids, like he mentioned, and no disrespect to them, that were cut off the team last year.
Right.
But because of the way the roster was shaped this year, they're not only on the team, but they're going to play significant minutes. So you're asking a lot for some of these young men to step up and play. So and then Tom Densmore at Citrus.
Yeah.
We always talk about his teams. They will be better come the middle of January than they are in the middle of December. Don't judge what you see. He knows what he's doing out there. The question, as always, is do they have enough talent to play that up and down style that he likes to play? But he'll adjust to. And
they do have the leading scorer back from last year, Antonio Shamblin, 246 points. I mean, he was a junior last year. He's a senior this year, so he has 54% field goal shootings from the field. So their leading scorer is back. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and again, just like on the girls' side, Citrus, Lecanto, and Crystal River, those three teams. Hopefully someone can step up and make a charge at Nature Coast. I don't think Nature Coast is going to be the dominant team that they have been the last few years. They're still the best team in the district, but I think there's a chance for some of these teams to make a step up and say, we've got an opportunity to beat them this year and maybe make a run at potentially a regular season or a tournament district championship.
And speaking of opportunity, you'll see some of these games right here on the Citrus Preps, and we got a schedule that's Brett's going to pull up, and there's going to be games live streaming on YouTube.
Yeah,
you can watch them at your couch. And you'll have
Gets
to go
underway December the 4th. Should be a good one. Weeki-Wachee against Lecanto, an opportunity, as you mentioned, for Coach Allen and his girls to sort of make a statement. And then later that week on a Friday night at Citrus. That'll be fun over in Inverness.
Rivalry game.
Crystal River against Citrus. That's always a good one. And then you turn around and have a girls' rivalry, Citrus at Lecanto. Then another boys one, Lecanto at Crystal River. That's always fun. Remember, Coach Vardy was on staff over there for a while at Crystal River. That just kind of adds to the intrigue. Crystal River and Citrus, interesting because Coach Bryant is the coach at Crystal River. His wife is the coach at Citrus. So that's always fun.
Family.
Yeah, Citrus at Lecanto boys in early January. Lecanto at Crystal River girls. Again, Coach Bryant and his girls trying to stay where they have been, which is the top of the district standings behind Weeki-Wachee. And then a pair of games for Seven Rivers as they host Tampa Bay Christian. So that's a look at our schedule from the live stream.
If you're a student, you're out there, and you're in part of the Citrus Crazies or the Lecanto Crazies, or however you want to call them, and come out there and just root for your team, and maybe we'll get you on camera.
Yeah, it'll be packed house for most of these games, so that should be fun. Very much looking forward to that. And as we said, make sure you check us out, as we've said, on all of our social media avenues. YouTube is where the stories will be. We'll continue our basketball previews throughout the next week or so. Next up will be the Crystal River girls, and then the Lecanto boys. We'll have Crystal River girls next week, and then Seven Rivers and Citrus as well. So looking forward to everything that's coming up. If you want to check us out, Twitter is at Citrus Preps. YouTube is where all the videos will be. Just put in YouTube and search Citrus Preps. We're on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So
and coming soon, we'll be on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, the new website will be debuting soon, so you can take a look at all the videos that we have, links to our YouTube site. We'll have schedules for all the schools, stories, and everything that we're doing on a daily and weekly basis here at Citrus Prep. So looking forward to that. I know, let's see, other things going on. I guess we can just touch on football a little bit. Interesting college football weekend. UCF is at USF.
Oh, is that the one you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, it's, unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, if you're a Florida State fan, that's on Saturday. That's why we're going in that order.
It's a 12 o'clock game. It's
they
move it down.
Big one for UCF as they were up to 9 in the football playoff standings. So, as I was reading, there is a path for UCF to potentially.
Do you really think that's going to happen?
No, I don't. But I mean, there's there's a path that could happen because you've got Ohio State and Michigan playing each other this weekend. Somebody's got to lose. The question is, what would be best for UCF? Who losing? Probably because they're ranked ahead of Ohio State. It would be best if Ohio State won, Michigan lost, and you would have to drop Michigan below them. But that would probably leapfrog Ohio State over UCF, and that would cause all sorts of issues. And then remember, you've also You've got West Virginia playing Oklahoma. West Virginia sort of played themselves out of it with a loss last week at Oklahoma State. You root for West Virginia to win if you're a UCF fan, and then that would drop Oklahoma down. And, you know,
I mean, this debate is really hard because, you know, I've watched the UCF play. They have a dynamic offense, but, you know, if you really put them up against an SEC team, is it going to happen? Are they going to be able to beat them?
The UCF Twitter juggernaut.
That's exactly.
You're
totally right.
They are Twitter bullies out there. They will point to last year they beat Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. And everybody who says...
Do we all know what bowl games are?
Yeah, well, exactly. But some people will say, well, it's head-to-head. It means something. Look, I respect what UCF is doing winning football.
I agree.
Because I don't care what conference you play in. It's not tough. Easy to win week after week after week.
Yep.
But, you know, the argument that because they've won 29, first of all, 29 in a row, whatever it is, doesn't matter to me because it's only the games you played this year. I don't care what your record was last year. So that's a stupid argument. It's what you are this year. This team is not as good as they were a year ago. And I know they beat Auburn in a bowl game. I don't think they're capable of beating the four teams that made it in the playoff. I still don't think they're capable of beating Alabama or Notre Dame in a playoff game.
That's Brett Knudsen at Citrus Preps.
Yeah, would it be nice to? I mean, look, the underdog story is fun.
It's great.
We love it in college basketball because the tournament.
Yeah, that equalizer.
But it's it's 68 teams, and you know sometimes that Cinderella makes it all the way to
close. But not.
It's happened. I mean, what did we see, just last year in the NCAA tournament? I mean, it can happen. But I don't think in college football, when you're talking about a 4-team playoff, you want...
Okay, you mentioned that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you have a feeling on the 4-team playoff? Do you feel like it needs to be more?
Oh, I mean, I would love to see more.
I would love to see 8.
I would love to see that. I mean, I would love to see at least 8, and I would love to see the first round at least on the campuses of the host schools. I think that would be fantastic. And some people think we're headed there. I don't know if we are. I would love to see that. That would be, I mean, as good as, like when USF and UCF are playing on Friday night. I mean, that's Friday afternoon. That's a huge game and it's fun. Florida State, not what it has been in years past, but that's. Could you imagine a few weeks later, Florida hosting a playoff game at Ben Hill Griffin? Welcoming in Oklahoma, or Ohio State. I mean, that would just be unbelievable because we know what these matchups are like early in the season, even when you play at a neutral site.
Yeah.
But hosting them, I would love to see that. I have to think we're getting there.
I think eventually it will, but maybe I don't know if it's in my lifetime or not, but we'll see.
I think we will because again this year, you could be talking about the Pac-12 and maybe the Big 12 not getting a team in the college football playoff and. The Big Ten didn't have one last year. I mean, the Power 5, if there's only 4 spots and there's 5 power conferences, somebody's going to get left out. And how long are these athletic directors, presidents, and coaches going to want to be left out? So I
lose money.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me the simple solution. You've got 5 power conferences. You let their conference champions in.
What do you have with Power 5 and then 1 wild card? One for
you'd have, if you go to 8, you'd have the Power 5 and 3 wild cards.
I think that'd be perfect.
And then you would have to.
Then you can get a Northwestern in there. You can get a UCF in there.
It would be easy to throw UCF in as the 8 seed.
And watch them get torched.
And give them their chance. Take the best. Group of 5 and let them in. I would hope that would happen. You would still have the debate. Then you would have who are the 3
Number
wild
9
card teams, and then you would have like this year if Northwestern wins the Big Ten championship in an 8-team playoff, they would get in as a 4-loss team. Do you want to see it? Well, yeah. I mean, they if that's the rules,
that's
same
the rules.
thing in college basketball. You win your conference tournament, and you're 15-15. You're in the NCAA tournament.
Why would you want to try to win your conference?
You get seeded. Well, maybe Northwestern gets seeded 8 because they're a 4-loss team, and maybe UCF gets seeded 7th. There's nothing wrong with that. So
I love the debate.
It'll be fun. But that's the game Friday. Is USF hosting UCF. What we've seen from USF the last few weeks, there's no indication that they're going to hang around in this one.
No. Sorry, Charlie.
It is a rivalry game. You never know, and the pressure now mounts on UCF because they can sort of, as we said, there's a path. You're close. You got to win 2 more. This and then the conference championship game.
Yep.
If you lose,
bye-bye.
It's over. Florida State should be the end of the streak for Florida. I mean, the losing streak to Florida State should end on Saturday.
After what they played against Boston College, though, Florida State did really well to win that game.
Played better,
but
looked better.
We'll see.
It's still a team that struggles on offense, and they have some issues on defense. The Gators have been all over the map on offense.
They have.
The inconsistency of Felipe Franks. What will happen with him? Can Florida State get enough pressure? Man for man, and what you've seen over the first 11 games of the season, Florida's a better football team.
Defensively, Florida definitely should put pressure on Francois and be able to do some things with their front line. Polite being maybe a top 10 draft pick from that standpoint. But I think it's going to be a close game. It's on 31-27. I think maybe 31-24 depending on it. I think the Gators come out ahead.
And you talked about the meaningless bowl games, but for Florida State, if you lose this one,
you're out.
You don't make a bowl game, and that streak comes to an end. If you win it, I mean,
you're going to a bowl game.
They were in Shreveport at the Independence Bowl. There's talk perhaps that they could go to the Gasparilla Bowl if they win, and they would meet USF, Willie Taggart's old school.
Oh, that would be cool.
That would be fairly interesting as well. And there's some bowl predictions that show if Florida wins, maybe a slight chance that they could take on UCF, but I think that's not going to happen. More than likely, LSU will get that one out in the Fiesta Bowl or wherever it is. But that'd be interesting if that would have happened to see Florida playing UCF. But
you gotta love this time of year. You gotta love it.
The playoff part is great, except for when Alabama plays, because we know what they're going to do.
Yeah, we know what
they
it
were
is.
Tied with the Citadel at the half last week.
That was just an aberration.
One of the few times Saban's crew does not just demolish a team in half. So
exactly.
That's the college football landscape for this weekend. Real quick, the NFL, we'll end on that, Mike. We talked about should they have played Jameis Winston to start last week. Well, obviously, we know the answer. They should have.
Yep.
He will start this week, and I would assume
6 games to prove himself.
Barring injury, no matter what he does, you got to play him.
You do.
If it's one TD and 5 interceptions on Sunday,
you're done.
He starts the next week.
I totally agree.
He has to start the rest of the year.
Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes proved that on Monday Night Football. I mean, you can throw 3 interceptions and still score 50 points.
Yeah, and again, man, I still go back to the Jared Goff thing and say, if somebody was able to come in and salvage Jared Goff, there's still a chance for Jameis Winston.
Totally agree.
Now, I don't know if that coach is the next coach of the Buccaneers or if that coach is the coach of some team Winston's going to be on next year.
Yeah.
But, this is he looked good mopping up last week.
He had a couple of throws that could have come back. The fumble was his fault, of course.
He always holds the ball.
But he did throw into traffic a couple times and released it a little bit too late on one read. But he did, he put the ball where he needed to put it 90% of the time.
Well,
you're gonna if you're either a fan of Jameis or not a fan, but you know what he is. He is what he is. He's a Brett Favre kind of type of guy, and he's gonna throw it where he needs to throw it. He's gonna try to make a play when he needs to try to make a play. But
yeah, the one thing about what he did was he finished some drives off with touchdowns where Fitzpatrick wasn't doing it.
The red zone, their offense were atrocious.
If you're looking at the glass half, this offense is really good.
It is.
They put up yards. They put up points. There's a lot to work with, and I think that will be the interesting move after the season, whether it's a new GM. We assume it's going to be a new head coach. Who knows what. You got to figure out what you're going to do with this offense. I mean, is it as simple as we go out and try to find the best free agent quarterback? We stick with Winston and see if the new coach can get him on track, or what do you do?
Well, that's the 6 games that are coming up now. That's the difference right now. Is going to be his proving ground. Jameis needs to make sure that he's in the game every single game. If he's not in the game, or they lose 35-30, to 10 or 3 as they did before, that's where he's going to lose it.
Or is there any conversation about the fact that Dirk Cutter's fired? He's done, right?
Pretty much. They have to roll out 6 wins in a row, and that's not going to happen.
No, not going to happen.
No.
So then that begs the question: who?
And that's
who would be the best choice, because it doesn't have to be the biggest name. And as we talked about, I mean, you watched that game on Monday night, and that was a fantastic football game, one of the best I've ever watched between the Chiefs and the Rams.
Offensive juggernaut.
I mean, you had an old school coach like Andy. Well, I mean,
Andy Reid.
The defense is. So I had a talk with somebody about this, and they said, "Well, it's just if you like offense." Well, I mean, the defense. I think both defenses scored at least
one point.
I think Kansas City scored two on defense.
2 pick sixes. Yeah.
So there were defensive plays. I mean, they gave up a lot of yards, but that's what. Unfortunately, if you that's today's NFL. Yep. I mean, look at the teams who are the best in the league. The Saints, all offense. The Rams, the Chiefs. I mean, I guess you can throw the Patriots in there. They probably play some, but they don't play the defense they played even 5 or 6 years ago. My point about those coaches, you got Andy Reid, who is an old school coach, still does the West Coast offense, and they found a way to score a bunch of points. And you've got McVay, the new, young, hot coordinator who has saved Jared Goff. What do you do if you're the Buccaneers? Who's the guy you go after?
Well, where do you see the two similarities for that? Andy Reid, like I said, he's actually changed his ways a little bit and letting more some RPOs that Mahomes is actually comfortable with. He's changed that a little bit. But you also look at their running game: Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt. Then you've got Todd Gurley on the other side. Those are things that you can rely on.
Same thing.
Saints, you have two-headed Ingram and Kamara.
Yeah.
So right now the Buccaneers have Peyton Barber, who actually is a pretty good back, but there's nothing else. Yeah. You got nothing else there. So that's where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to be a little more aggressive next year, I believe.
But they can put up points. Or we saw
they already do
for point with the Saints.
They do.
I mean, they can do it.
And they gained 500 yards and scored 3 points. But that's something that that's what happened with the Monday night game. There was 500 yards scored, but there was 50 points scored.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of difference you got to have. And I think there's some balance there that Cutter is not looking at.
Now, doesn't this then? I mean, you're not going to. The Glazers aren't going to be gone, and that's the one.
No.
That's the one constant in all of this bad years is them, and they are at the forefront of the blame. Because you just can't go through this many head coaches and GMs and say, well, it's the coach and the GM's fault. No, it's ownership's fault. They've made bad hires and bad judgments. So there's no question. But okay, Cutter's gone. Is there anything that Jason Light has done that tells you he should be back as general manager?
Well, he's got there's some pretty good draft picks. His free agency pickups are not as good as what we thought. Pierre-Paul's got, 9 sacks, I think, right now, 8.5 sacks maybe.
Yeah.
He's not world beater. Curry was a bust, I believe. McCoy's been something of a player that's been hurt a lot.
Inconsistent.
It's just, I think they focused in like Vita Vea this year. I'll use Vita Vea. Jason Light, I thought it was a pretty good pick because they're trying to shore up and get it back up for McCoy. But obviously it's not a good pick because there's nothing in the defensive backfield that is going to help them out right now. They got a couple rookies that are trying to work their way through. And then you got a depletion sheet of the linebacker core, Quan Alexander and Levante David gone. And you just got young people in there. So there's a lot of problems there. Offensively, he picked up when his draft picks are playing. Godwin, Howard. They're all playing. They're all going to be good.
I mean, I saw an article I read yesterday that said if you watch the film on Ali Marpet, he may be one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
And this was kind of a Division III player. So that's the thing about Light, which is, I think, frustrating for fans. You see some of these picks that have been really, really good and turned out well. And then there's others that you look at and you go, what was he thinking?
We don't know what he was thinking. That's the problem.
But isn't that? I mean, you're not everyone's the Patriots.
No.
I mean, the Saints are having a great year, but they went. Sean Payton almost lost his job a couple of years ago.
Exactly. Take some time.
The Rams have been a horrible, horrible franchise for years and years and years, and they've got it going now. But I mean, so it's not easy to make these picks. The question is, though, I mean, do you want to continue in this direction? Is it worth it? My guess is, just knowing what the Glazers have done in the past, and I could be completely wrong, I think the easy thing to do is to fire the coach, keep the GM, to keep some sort of continuity, totally, because you see that there is some things to work with.
Yes.
This team was just an absolute disaster on both sides of the football, and all the draft picks were terrible in the free agent. I could see why you say blow it up and start over. And I'm not there's part of me that says you do need to go after a new GM because some of the stuff isn't working out. But I think the Glazers are going to go with the half fix. The easy fix is to let's keep the structure that we have from the front office and the GM. Yep. Let's find another coach and a new set of coordinators and wherever else, and see. And then Jason Licht is on notice. I mean, it becomes
that's the issue.
You've got about maybe a year or two before you're gone. We start off 0-6 next year. Goodbye.
And if the draft is not good for next year too, that'll be on him.
Yeah. So.
Buccaneers, and this football around here, we got some great play, high school going on, but we got some crappy play going on, except for Orlando and the rest of the state.
Yeah, that's right. All the eggs are in the UCF basket. So,
that's right.
We'll see if they can get it done. So, once again, make sure you keep tuned in here on YouTube for our Citrus Preps podcast, our basketball previews, our stories on all the winter sports, and then, of course, the first week of December, we get underway with our high school basketball live streams on YouTube. So, check that out. We'll be back here again next week for another edition of the Citrus Preps podcast. Have a thankful and happy Thanksgiving.
Definitely.
Enjoy time with the family. Be safe, and we'll see everybody next week.